Kaiki is actually Kampuru's father. Hello everyone and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and joining me tonight we have our poser extraordinaire, Natai. You've already started now, haven't you?
I'm into it, dude. Let's fucking sing karaoke like it's, I don't know, an 80s shoujo anime.
Let's fucking do it. So yeah, as the title suggests, we're here. It's finally time to wrap up Monogatari's second season, Natai.
It's time. It's time for Koi Monogatari.
It's time for Koi Monogatari. It's time for Hitagi End. We're dedicating an entire part of our Monogatari Spoilercast series just to the what is colloquially known in the fan base as the Kaiki arc of Monogatari. With good reason.
Best
because
arc? Question mark?
That's, you know what? There's a lot of people that think that, and it's certainly one. It may be my favorite. In fact, in my opinion, because one thing we've talked about throughout this entire Spoilercast series is how good the dialogue is throughout the entirety of Monogatari. I think, just in terms of dialogue writing, I mean, it's all like a 10, but here it's cranked up to 11. Like, I mentioned this with you a couple of days ago, it's because as we were rewatching this, that this is probably the closest I think anime has ever come in terms of dialogue writing to being genuinely Shakespearean.
I don't have any issue with that statement. It's definitely up there. I mean, we always talk about how, like, Monogatari is, like, the dialogue, but literally, like, you have entire episodes which are just, like, built around two people in a room literally talking to each other for 20 minutes, and it's just so it captures you, you know, it enthralls you. It's fascinating. It's great.
It is.
This arc especially is.
It is. Before we actually get into the meat and potatoes of the story of this arc, let's talk about the OP and ED. So technically, there are two OPs for this arc. They're both the same song, but the first three episodes, it's called Fast Love. It was composed by...
the same visuals.
Yeah, and the same visuals. It was composed by Satoru Kosaki, written by Meg Rock, and for episodes 1 through 3, it is sung by Chiwa Saito, who is the voice actor for Hitagi.
The goddess.
The goddess. And then in episodes 4 through 6, it's the same song with, you know, pretty much the same visuals. It comes back as it's called Kogarashi Sentiment. It's again the same song, but they add vocals from Shinichiro Miki, who is the voice actor for Kaiki. And this is the first, and so far, assuming we don't get any more, or we do get some more Monogatari anime down the road, this is the first instance of a male member of the cast singing an OP.
And man, what a fantastic OP. It
is.
It's one of the best, easily. There's just so much. I mean, let's, for a second, beyond the just 10 out of 10 visuals, the duet is genius. I think it's like an absolute brilliant choice as a song.
It is, but you mentioned the visuals, and like the visuals deserve a little bit of a special mention because before now, like all the OP visuals have been sort of this what's the really word, like avant-garde
abstract
imagery kind of. But then this is the first one where we get. Again, it was showing Shaft really wanting to experiment with the visual style, I think. You get a visual style for this OP that looks like a fucking shoujo anime from the 1980s.
And that motif of the visuals switching between the sort of quote-unquote grounded aesthetic we know from the show, how the characters look like, and that switching around with the 80s sort of shoujo anime style visuals that it has. That's so brilliant, and you get these like two versions of Hitagi and Kaiki interacting with each other, and in different visuals, it's like it's a different context, and it's absolutely brilliant. You have a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of symbolisms of, you know, the snake sort of choking the crab and all of that. It's
yes.
I can gush about this opening alone for like 30 minutes.
And then we have a new ED that came in. It's called Snowdrop, also written by Meg Rock, composed by Hideki Tanaka, and it's sung by Marina Kawano and Luna Haruna.
Great ED. I love the song. I listen to it a lot. I love the visuals. The sort of, again, it's that aesthetic that the EDs have been playing with like ever since the beginning of the show, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's great. It looks great. A lot of like really cute sort of like moments you have, whether it's like Oshino and Kaiki in their different positions that just like they look. I love it. It's good. It's a really good ED. But the OP by far steals the show.
Oh, for sure. But let's actually get into the meat and potatoes of this story arc. So when the arc opens, we're greeted with Kaiki, aka Best Girl, and this is the second time in Monogatari so far that we have had a point of view not from Koyomi.
Third.
What was this? What was?
Yeah.
So we
Hanekawa,
had
Nadeko, and now. Kaiki.
Oh yes, we did have one from Nadeko's perspective. Yeah. So this is the third. Excuse me, the third.
Yep.
Time.
And man, what a fascinating mind to delve into and just like hear his inner thoughts all the time.
Yes. So we come across him. He's at a shrine on New Year's Day, and he's basically directly addressing the audience here that he's going to tell you a story that may or may not be true, and it may be partially true, it may be completely false. Who knows?
Yeah, basically, it's this series and fucking with us, which is great because
immediately establishing the fact that this is a 100% unreliable narrator.
Yeah. For sure,
yeah.
and every now and then we'll get hints of that throughout the arc, which is awesome. It's
and
one
the
of my
amazing
favorite,
thing is, like right at the beginning, it's obvious that Kaiki he's alone, more or less. I mean, he's surrounded by people, but he's really alone. He's not talking specifically to anyone.
He's by himself. Yeah,
he's talking directly to the audience. And there are times throughout this arc where he will actually be talking to someone in conversation, but he's really addressing the audience. And it is really, really great, just well-written dialogue where like he knows that he's addressing the audience, but he's weaving it into the conversation that he's having with the other character. I love it, and I'm gonna point some of those out as we go along here.
There's so much fun to just point out because it's so fucking good. You know, it's so dense with like bits of like information that are like, whoa, that's what are you saying right now? It's great.
Yeah. And so he's interrupted on his. It's also the monologue he's going through where he's like trying to deceive the audience, basically. Am I here because I like watching people? Am I here because I really want to pray for good fortune? Who knows? Who can say?
Am I here because there's just so much money being thrown around here in this
can I just watching people throw away money like trash?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but then he gets contacted by someone, which is
he gets a call. He gets a call from Hitaki, and I love the little conversation that they have where they're trying to essentially deceive each other over the phone. Where Kaiki pretends like, "Hey, you got the wrong number. My name's really Suzuki." and then Hitaki just goes along with it, and she says, "What would she call herself? Shinsho Hahara or something like that." I forget
something like that. And she'd be like, "Oh, it'd be a shame if I arrive at this airport and no one would be there to pick me up, right?" And then he just rushes to the airport to meet her there.
That's the funny thing too. Like, when it's obvious to both of them that they're talking to each other and that they know each other, but yet they keep the lie up over the phone. And like because Kaiki doesn't want to actually help her, right? And he lies and says
he doesn't want to do anything with her. Yeah.
Yeah, and he lies and says that he's in Okinawa just to like shrug her off, right? And she's like, "All right, well, I'll just fly there and meet you." And then he's like, "Well, shit, now I got to fly to Okinawa."
It's this entire. I mean, I think the crux of this entire arc is the relationship between Kaiki and Hitagi, and it's absolutely amazing how many facets it has. Because right now we're experiencing like sort of absolute shit talking that happens between the two, and each one trying to outsmart the other, sort of just like going with the lie as far as they can to see if the other will actually keep up with them.
Yeah.
But later on, even in this same episode, we get other facets of their relationship which are much more mature. And I think that's one thing I really want to point out is sometimes the dialogue, especially in this arc, is so adult and so real that it's kind of incredible that you're like, wait, shit, this is Monogatari. Whoa.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And it's good to see, and we'll see here in a few minutes, where that really adult, mature dialogue comes up against immature actions.
So Kaiki arrives at the airport.
Yeah. I like how you write here. I love how you write just here in this doc that we use that shenanigans ensue. What a great way to just. No. Hold on. So when they arrive at the airport and they're still keeping up this fucking like ruse, right, over the phone, and they're like, Hitagi's like, okay, well, I'll meet you at a cafe or whatever, and she's like, it's not like you just didn't come here on a plane, right?
And then he fucking peeks over and he sees her, this fucking bitch sitting drinking her lemonade or whatever with the glasses and the fake mustache on her face,
looking like Groucho Marx.
I know, right? And of course, what is he gonna do? He's gonna approach her? No. He's gonna do one better. So he actually goes looking for a new outfit to walk in, and he actually goes to meet her with this stupid Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah.
And of course, she spits her drink in his face because
I actually so fun fact. A few years ago, when I went to MetroCon here in Florida,
right.
I actually cosplayed as Hawaiian shirt Kaiki.
What a Chad, dude! What
man,
absolute Chad!
It was great. Yeah, they meet each other, and the very first thing that Hitagi does upon him sitting down is literally just throw the drink right on him. And
yeah, she literally spits the drink out of laughter.
And then Kaiki's just like, "Hey, waitress, can you get her some more orange juice, please?"
You know what's my favorite part about this first interaction between the two? So she spits the drink in his face out of laughter, and then you see the camera points at Kaiki. It's like, "Hey, got her."
Yeah, he literally just says, "I win."
Yeah, so good.
It is just
what a
funny.
Great way to open.
It goes so much showing his character. It's like, yeah, deep down he's super serious, but he also has that little bit of a childish streak in him, and I fucking love it.
He likes to fuck with Itagi a lot, and again, that dynamic is just so much to get into with their dynamic. It's incredible.
Like, I'm not gonna go super deep into what's being discussed here because we could analyze this conversation they have to, you know,
this entire episode we could talk about it for all day.
Yeah, but there's a couple of things in it I definitely want to point out throughout this entire conversation. It is essentially a battle of wits between Hitagi and Kaiki, right? And it's like who can get who to just cry uncle first, like who can get who to say, all right, I give up, I'll listen to you.
Yeah,
and
that's really entertaining.
That shit talking between them is just so good. It's so well written, and there's some great lines that happen here. Happen here too. There's one that happens in the second episode, but I'll get into that in a second. But throughout the course of this, we actually have a couple of instances where drinks get thrown again.
All the time.
Yeah. But the one I really want to talk about is toward the end of this conversation, right before Kaiki leaves to have one of the greatest monologues in anime history. Hitagi's offering him money to do this job, and what he wants him to do is deceive Nautica, who has already stated, which we talked about in a previous arc, wants to kill Hitagi and Koyomi on graduation day because of the unrequited love. After she has become a god, and she has the power to do this, and she wants what she wants from Kaiki is she wants Kaiki to deceive Nautica because that's what she knows that he's really good at, because almost everyone she's come into contact with, Kaiki has deceived in some way.
Yeah, and it's funny how he reacts to it. It's like, so you're approaching me for this? And it's like sort of questioning why, and like he questions like the how complex the job is, because it seems so sort of like whatever to him. But I love that back and forth. And then she sort of like, as you said, she offers money, she offers more money, and to the like, as we said about spinning drinks at each other, to the point at where she was like, yeah, I'll even offer my body. So he takes his cup of coffee and just splashes it in her face. Yeah.
And so something else that I think this speaks to is like how traditional of like a guy Kaiki tends to be, and we've seen glimpses of it before, right? So like we've seen glimpses like he doesn't like things like he tends to respond somewhat shall we say harshly to things like prostitution.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's like, I think it's even more than that. Sometimes it feels like he treats Hitagi as if she's like a child, like a brat even sometimes. Like she'll say some things and like sort of suggest actions that it'd be like very, I don't know if condescending, but like very dismissive of them. And she hates that. She notices that.
And it's funny that, you know, for all the way that she's talking, because like this is a very adult conversation mostly that they're having between each other, but yet she has these things that get said to her, and then she just goes off, and we see it in the conversation, like she spits her drink at him, or then eventually throws her drink at him, and it's like, yeah, for all the talk of you being for you being mature and not a child, you tend to act pretty childish sometimes.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I love that dynamic though, that he is able to like recognize that she thinks she's an adult, but yet she can regress into those childish tendencies.
Yeah, it's like one of my friends who watched the show put it very. I love how he put it. It's like all the cast is like when they like, you know, the high schoolers did like talk to each other. It's like this game of, as you said, wits and shit talking to each other, and then you have Kaiki show up and absolutely destroy all of them with. With how he behaves and talks, and it's great, because
let me show you
like
kids how this shit really is.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then at the end of this, the episode ends with one of the greatest monologues, I think, in anime history, where Kaiki excuses himself to go to the bathroom, and he's just looking at himself in the mirror and talking to himself, trying to talk him into doing this job, because he has outwardly expressed no interest to Hitagi about doing this job, because it doesn't seem to benefit him monetarily. So he's sitting there trying to figure out any kind of reason besides just money that he would want to take on this job. And I love the all the different excuses that he gives, and he's like, every one of them just ends in no, I can't do that. Like
it's one of them is like, because
one of them is like, I can meet this person Hanekawa, she has big boobs.
No, it's like he's trying to, like, as you said, he's trying to give himself like he's trying to justify actually doing this. It's like, maybe I want to help Senjukahara after all the things she went through. No, maybe I want to do it as like a favor for Aragi after all the shit that he went through. No, it's a great monologue, but then he ends with him. It's like, hold on a second, they're friends with this Kanbaru, and I want to meet her. Maybe if I can like do this job, that'll let me actually meet up with Kanbaru. Yes.
Yes. So he wants the only thing he thinks is that he can use this as a way to get to Kanbaru. This all just further exemplifies for me my belief in my like fan theory that Kaiki is
your headcanon. My
headcanon that Kaiki is actually Kanbaru's father. I know I've mentioned it before, but I think just lends further credence to it that he's willing to go this far just to get closer to her.
I mean, first time we meet him is when he's outside Kanbaru's place, and it's like, okay, that's a random spot for you to hang in, Mister, right? But yeah, so he was willing to take the job apparently, and that's the end of episode 1, which is insane, because all this entire episode is two people in a room talking to each other, pretty much, and it's one of the best episodes of the entire series.
And then the next episode, they just continue basically from where they left off, right? So we got Kaiki is asking, after he agrees to take the job, and he tells Hitagi this. Obviously, he needs more information about, you know, what's going on. And there's the best bit of foreshadowing I think I've ever seen in anime in this conversation. So they're walking around. They're essentially walking around this airport that they're in. And Kaiki, or not Kaiki, Hitagi says to Kaiki, there are people out there that hold a grudge against you. Please make sure that you don't get beaten to a pulp by a junior high kid only to be left as an unidentifiable corpse. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the movies, this is what we call foreshadowing.
Also, isn't he like, I don't like getting stabbed?
Yeah.
Wow, dude. So good.
Yeah, I love this bit of foreshadowing, and like, you know, as a and you only realize this on a rewatch of it. The first time you watch it, you just think that this is a weird bit of thing, you know, something to say sort of out of the blue like this, but you know, whatever. It's Monogatari, but then you realize, oh, I see what you were doing there, Nisuisan. Very nice, very nice.
Also, I love how every time Itagi mentions Hanekawa, he's like, who the fuck is this Hanekawa?
Yeah, I do.
I love it so much.
I love that too. And he'll find out. And he also resolves that he will not take any more money from Hitagi than what she currently has on her. So she gives him an envelope that has 100,000 yen in it. I don't know how much this would have been at the time Monogatari came out. I'm sure it's a different amount than it is now, but...
And it's just like, I don't have any money. Can you pay for my flight back?
Yeah. And then he just gives her that look like...
And one of my favorite bits is like, so when he keeps like asking her about it and like figuring what's the story behind this entire case, and she talks about how Nadeko was in love with Koyomi and all that, and it's literally like this whole shit started from like a lover's triangle, and it's like that low brow, huh?
Yeah, I do love that.
So good.
The more he finds out about this, the more he keeps shit talking Hitagi and Koyomi's relationship.
The entire situation, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
And
I absolutely love it. It's like I say,
yeah.
It's some of the best written dialogue the series has to offer.
It's great. It's just so dense. There's just so much to talk about with this arc. But yeah, then he arrives at the town.
I want before we do that, there is one other thing that Kaiki says during this whole conversation with Hitagi at the airport that I wanted to point out. That it 100% sums up his entire character in a single line. Where
I know which one you're talking about.
He looks her straight in the eyes and says, "Don't trust, doubt."
It's so, I love the shading in that specific shot because he looks so menacing in that shot.
Does.
You know?
It's
like with the sunglasses, the thick blacks around his eyes and sunglasses. It looks so good.
And he's looking down, and then he's got his eyes focusing up at her, and he just like it's so, like you say, it's so menacing, and it's so like he's trying to like shout this deep into her soul, where he just like, don't trust, doubt. And like you say, like the shading changes completely for that one little shot. Like he gets super realistic in that one instance.
I should have wrote it down. What was the context for that reply? What did he reply for when he said that? Should have wrote it down. Written that down.
So the thing he's actually replying to Itagi with is I forget the context of why he says it, but the way he says it,
the way he says it is just so.
Yes,
it's really threatening. Yeah, so good. But then they didn't depart, and he's like, "Okay, I'll do this."
I know exactly the context he says that for. It's Hitagi asks, "How do I know you won't take my money and just leave me high and dry?" And he says, "Don't trust, doubt."
So good. And then he arrives at town, and of course he has this little makeover he does for himself. With
the new, easy breezy,
with the
beautiful,
new suit.
best grill.
Yeah, so good. I love it. And I love it later on when he like takes a shower, his hair comes back up. When he has these like every now and then like these like small moments where he like play with his hair. Mm-hmm. It's like, I think in one of the later conversations, like he's like pulling his hair back up when he's talking to Hanekawa. I think.
Yeah,
but we'll get to that. It looks great. I love that shot.
Yeah, and he goes in. One of the first things he does is he goes to Nadeko's parents' house, where she used to live, and finds out that they're kind of what's the word? Sheltering her.
Sort of. Sheltering and aren't really aware of their daughter. You know, it's like
they know who she is, but they don't really know her.
Yeah, they don't know her. later on in the arc, there's a very specific line that sums it up perfectly, and we'll get to that. But yeah, I love how he then he goes to their place and he sort of like impersonates like a worried parent of a classmate or whatever. Yeah, and he's like asking the right questions just to like tug on their heartstrings to like, oh, I'd love to. He's like trying to figure out maybe he will find some clues or whatever because he's worried about his own daughter or whatever. And then they show him to her room, and then he looks at all the photos, and he's like trying to piece together, okay, what type of person is she? Like he's trying to figure her out. And I love across. There's a lot of points in the arc where you just see him sort of investigate and study. I love right before he arrives at the town, there's this shot of him in the airplane, like taking notes, writing down notes in his notebook. I love it. So
yeah, and it shows that he's literally just drawing things.
Yeah, his notes is literally just him doodling stuff, and it's great.
Yeah. But then we get while he's sitting in the room, but investigating Nautica's room, we find like the photos are all of her. And like nobody else, and like Kaiki makes a distinct reference that all of the cuteness that she has, like her aura of cuteness, it all seems so forced. None of it seems genuine.
Because she always seems like to look down or in different directions. She seems uncomfortable, even though she's like, oh, look at this cute girl, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he even makes note of like she grew her bangs out so that she wouldn't have to look anyone directly in the eyes.
Yeah, which is like a great callback to pretty much what happened in her arc in the second season when they talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also kind of a callback to Nissan Monogatari. It makes you wonder who was the real fake of Nissan Monogatari. Because you remember, who was the girl that started out that arc?
True.
Nautico.
That bitch with her stupid game.
Yes. And then this is the second time we get a direct reference to Nautico's closet. The first time was in Nissan Monogatari when
that's true.
When Koyomi asked about it, and she says, "No, you can't go in the closet." And Koyomi just kind of brushes it off like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then Kaiki gets the same lecture or talking to from her parents, which her parents have never opened the closet either. You'd think, with a missing child, you would.
And he notes that.
Everything.
He's like, yeah, he notes it's like, that's so strange that they have a missing child, but they kept her room like in tip-top shape without
exactly as
anything.
It was when she left.
Yep.
Yeah, and kind of abided by her demand that they not go into the closet, despite the fact that it could have some, clue or whatever as to where she might be or what she's done.
Oh, we'll get to that closet.
And we'll get to it. Kaiki notes it very dutifully too. And so Kaiki makes a decision to go visit Nautico at the shrine, even though he was kind of he was told that maybe not the best idea to go do so soon, but he decides to go do it anyway. He offers her,
and then
money
the shrine is repaired and seems like very like
like a shrine.
Looks good. It looks like a proper shrine.
Yeah. So that's something that Nautico has been doing. We also learned that in the preceding days or weeks, really, Koyomi has been going up to the shrine not every day, but somewhat regularly to confront Nautico, and she keeps beating the shit out of him.
Yeah. Poor guy.
So part of the reason that Kaiki was advised not to go do this is because that if not with Koyomi, if he gets the shit beat out of him, like he's like half vampire, he'll heal up pretty quickly. Kaiki could die.
Yeah, Kaiki could literally die. He's just a dude, and I love. He's like, I'll pay her a visit, and then he goes there, and that first interaction. He throws 10,000 yen, and she just bursts out of the shrine, and she's like,
Nadako dayo!
Nadako dayo! Shout out to the voice acting in this arc. Each one of them just bring their A game. They're so good. Like, I love Nadako in this arc. She's so good.
Yeah, for sure. Where was I going with this? She's overjoyed about the fact that she has her first adherent, or who she believes to be her first adherent, that is Kaiki.
He's literally the first guy that actually shows up and offers her money.
Yeah, and doesn't run away when she bursts out, because she does mention that other people have come up here, but the second that she appears, they run away before making an offering.
I mean, she has Medusa hair. I can understand.
Yeah, I can't blame them, really. I really can't. But they have this conversation, and she talks to Kaiki about wanting to kill, Koyomi and Hitagi, and that sentiment, it's not expressed exactly this way, but that sentiment that's talked about in this conversation, that it's better for her to love someone forever instead of loving each other. That's
something like that. Ooh. That it goes back again to themes of her arc, where it's like, oh, she enjoys the fantasy of this unrequited love more than actual relationship of like people loving each other.
She likes the idea of being in love more than the act of love itself.
Yeah. And,
she's in love with the idea of love.
She's in love with the idea of Koyomi, honestly.
Yes.
And then Kaiki sort of just opens up to him. And it's like, oh, I'm Kaiki, and it's like, oh shit, maybe I fucked up.
I know. I like that, where he actually says his name, and then internally he's like, wait a minute. Fuck, I didn't directly deceive her, but I did deceive people who were close to her, and they probably mentioned my name.
But then he gives her this like cat cradle, this like little game to play with the ropes or whatever, and they sort of like bond over it, sort of wink wink, and it's cute. I like that whole exchange. I want a piece of animation of Kaiki and Nautica doing cat cradles.
Though. It shows what his intentions are with doing this, because like he wants to gain her trust.
Oh yeah.
And the only way he can do that is by pretending to be, actually give a shit about her and what she's like doing up here, right?
And he is asking her questions, like interested in like, and she just babbles on and on about Araragi and Itagi, and she's gonna kill them and all of that, and he just lets her do the talking, which so far seems to work in his favor.
And in the course of this talking, he realizes that like she doesn't remember important details that she probably should, but yet she clings on to these very minor, seemingly unimportant details and holds on to them like they're fucking like
that are specifically related to Araragi. Yeah.
Yeah. And a good example is like she probably had heard Kaiki's name at some point, but she didn't remember it.
She forgot about it, yeah, because her entire like infatuation with Araragi is just like taking all of her brain cells or whatever.
Yeah, and I love the way that this episode essentially ends with Kaiki just kind of realizing to himself, this person's going to be really easy to manipulate and deceive. She's an idiot.
Literally is like, yeah, she's an airhead. She's a dumbass.
Yeah.
But he knows that she's a dumbass, but she's insane.
Yeah. So that's pretty much how this episode ends, and then we get to episode 3, which is another one of my the beginning of it has one of my favorite encounters, like dialogues ever in anime.
Yeah, definitely hard agree.
So Kaiki calls Hitagi and wants to see her in person because he needs to discuss something with her that he doesn't feel he can talk about over the phone.
To Mr. Donut we go.
Yes, I also love they meet what I think is supposed to be like a metro station or like a train station, and he asks her, he asks her, is there a family restaurant around here that we can go to that's still open? Because it's somewhat late at night, or at least it's implied that it's somewhat late at night that they've met,
and she comments on that.
Yeah. And then she's like, okay, follow me, and then they end up at Mr. Donut.
Very begrudgingly, she's like, oh, that's how you ask people out? Okay, follow me. At first I love how she's like trying to like act as if she doesn't see him in the station. It's so good. So good.
It's very Hitagi.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, then they have this dialogue that lasts for quite a while. It's a good chunk of this episode. And it's, like I say, it's one of my favorite dialogues ever in anime. And they talk about a lot. They talk about their like relationship, and I use that kind of in air quotes. That he lied to Koyomi about Hitagi having a crush on him.
Yeah.
And this,
Because again, that whole thing of like he told us back in Issei Monogatari about that, but I guess he was just shit talking and lying to us.
he was, or is he lying now? Who knows? Because he's the one telling the story, and he's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love that callback. And I also love the fact that it puts an enormous amount. What it does is this is the first part where the first part of this arc where you start to realize that there's a lot of lying going on across the board.
When it comes to Kaiki, for sure.
Not just Kaiki,
I mean,
Shinjikahara too.
True, yeah, for sure.
And then Kaiki shares with Hitagi his experience meeting with Nautica. I like how Hitagi's like, "Wow, and you didn't die." Nice. But he relates to her like she's an airhead, she's an idiot, and she grew up essentially in an environment where she never needed to feel angry or upset, or she never needed to feel anything resembling malice, and it's made her resentful.
Or anyone having these like bad intentions towards her. She never was in an environment like that. So like that's how he explains how easy for him going to be to deceive her. And then he sort of lays out the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of shows that he believes that because she's lived this way, she's going to be very naive, which if you think about it, is kind of true in real life, right? You see it a lot with people who young people who grow up essentially with what we call silver spoons in their mouth. They don't necessarily have to work towards anything. They get a lot of stuff handed to them. They never have to feel any sort of discomfort or anger or, malice towards anything. And they grow up to be pretty resentful people.
or feeling like people are like having these emotions towards them, they're like very sort of walled off from others' like intentions. For better or for
they're
worse.
sheltered. And they grow up typically to be very resentful of this. Like this happens in real life, so it's kind of relatable in a weird way.
Sort of, yeah. It's again, I we talked. I can't stop gushing about this, but we talked about this many times. How the second season, in its entirety, is sort of like deconstructing all of the characters that we saw built up throughout Monogatari so far. This is one of them. Sort of like looking at this like sort of caricature that we saw in Baki Monogatari with Nautica, and how it sort of like unraveled more and more, and how we sort of like take a closer inspection on that character. It's like what type of person is that, what that led her to be this way. It's great.
So the plan that essentially Kaiki comes up with is that he's going to visit the shrine over and over and over again over the course of the next month or so, and build up a rapport with Nautica, and get on her good side more or less, and try to get more and more of the story behind her relationship with Hitagi and Koyomi out of her, and then gonna like lay on to her that they both died in an accident, so now she can't kill them, and that will eventually make her realize that, oh, okay, I don't need to do this anymore, and essentially make her grow up out of these feelings of hatred.
Yeah, sort of like make her realize that it's kind of pointless because, oh, look, these people are dead. It doesn't matter anymore. And I love how reassuring he is for Shinjikahara. It's like, it's going to be very easy. This is the plan. I got this in the bag, Yeah. And then one of my absolute favorite moments in this episode is like, so by this point, so they're just, talking, and she has this like cup of water or whatever next to her, and he's like eating donuts, and in the moment sort of like he reassures her that everything's gonna be fine. I love how she literally just like lowers her scarf and like takes a donut and eats it because she looks so relieved, and like it's very on the nose, but like I love how she literally lowers her guard when she lowers the scarf, and it's like
she very physically lowers her guard by taking her scarf off.
Yeah,
it's also worth mentioning the outfit that Hitagi is wearing, which is
so
like
good.
Fans of the series tend to call it her winter outfit. It looks, they even made a figure out of it. It looks so good.
Which, by the way, I love when Kaiki is like, "It's this light at night, and you're wearing your school uniform," and she's like, "I'm not willing to share any part of my private life with you, so I use this uniform as like my business outfit." I'm like, Right on.
Also, something that happens shortly before this is that Kaiki asks her very point blankly, like, when you get up and walk away from somewhere, do you always take your bag with you? Like, do you always take your personal stuff with you? And she says, well, it kind of depends. He's like, around you? Yes, I would always take my bag with me. I would always have it to where I can see and feel what's being done with it. And then he asks her, when he first talks to her to get her to come out and meet her, she's actually at Araragi's parents' house, and like everyone is there. Koyomi, his parents, his sisters,
her parents as well, apparently.
Yeah, her father at least.
Her father,
I don't think her mother was there. But he asks her, so you wouldn't do it with me, but did you do it when you went to the hall to take the call from me? And she's like, and she thinks about it for a second. It's like, no, I left it there because I trust these people.
It's one of these Nisio-isms, sort of, that he's like dotes on this very specific detail and just makes a conversation out of it. It's...
And I bring that up because after the whole thing with her lowering her guard, and it's a very physical manifestation of a load being lifted off of her shoulders by Kaiki telling her all of this and eating the donut, and it's like, okay, I can finally breathe. She gets up and goes to the bathroom. Now, while she's in there, Kaiki makes note of the fact that she took her bag with her. And I like the fact that he just looks at it and goes, good girl. You're learning.
But then, when she returns, one of the best shots in the entire series, it's when she comes back out of the bathroom, and she looks at Kaiki, teary-eyed, and she's like, thank you. It's so, the tone, her tone is just so right. It doesn't feel like, it feels so real. How she's like very sort of like, she just thanks him from the bottom of her heart for actually like reassuring her that it's gonna be okay. It's so good.
Yeah. So I do want to point out a slight difference between how the anime tackled this and the light novel.
Oh, okay. Lay it on me.
It's a kind of a minor difference, but it adds a little bit more context to her going to the bathroom. It's not really obvious in the anime how long she's away from the table. In the light novel, it says that she's away. Back. In the light novel, it makes it very clear that she's away for almost 10 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
She was bawling her eyes out.
So she was bawling her fucking eyes out. And something else that doesn't really come through in the anime so much. She's teary-eyed. In the light novel, it describes her face her face looks like she's been crying very, very hard.
Yeah.
It's a small difference between the anime and the light novel I wanted to point out.
I think what it does, the detail that I love about that moment is just the delivery of her line. It's very simple. It's just her thanking it, but the tone, it just feels so different from everything we've heard. Because until now, we heard Italki in full on confidence, just like firing back at Kaiki for everything he has. But then when she walks out of the bathroom, she's just very sincerely, she's just like, thank you. Thank you so much.
And it's a great moment of character development too, because the Hitagi we met back in Koi Monogatari would never have let herself be seen crying in public like this. Would never
her growth.
If she had to step away to cry, she would have done it, cleaned herself up, then come back out steel faced, right?
Yeah, her growth in the show is just one of those satisfying aspects of it, and this this arc especially is one of the pillars of that,
Yeah. But gotta stop gushing about that because I could talk about this conversation for hours.
Oh my god, we still have 3 episodes to go.
So then we have a scene where we actually see Kaiki studying how to do cat's cradles because he doesn't know how to do it, even though he made it sound like he did know how to do it from when he gave the string to Nautica.
And then he's looking at all the papers he throws to the side, I memorized it.
I memorized them all. And then we get Ononoki showing up literally out of nowhere. Yay! Oni-chan, peace.
And he hates it.
And he absolutely
hates
I get the sense that he just barely tolerates Ononoki's existence. Because Ononoki's been around for quite a while, and he knows her from before when he had more of a direct association with Gaian and Meme and Kaganui. And I get the sense that he has always just barely tolerated her existence.
I want an entire show of just Kaiki and Ononoki, and he's just hating every second of it.
But yeah, she shows up to deliver a message from Guyan. Guyan wants him to completely cease what he's doing in this town and offers him 3 million yen in payment, so much more than what Hitagi can offer. And I love the fact that he goes back and forth in his mind, like, should I do this? Should I not do this? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
And I love how he's like thinking about it, and then it's like 30 minutes past, and it's like, yeah, no.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we also learned that, behind the scenes from what's been going on throughout the course of second season and from before, Guyan has kind of been working behind the scenes to try and stabilize this town, quote unquote.
It's very revealing, like a lot of details about how influential Guyan has been on this sort of world we've been through.
And that she's kind of been involved, I won't say in everything that we've seen so far, but in a lot of the things we've seen so far, she's been kind of behind the scenes, pulling some strings, putting things where they should be. Like, her original intention was to install a new god at that shrine, but it wasn't supposed to be Nautica, and that someone has actually interfered with this plan. And if you're really thinking hard, you already know.
I wonder who.
You already know who's interfered with this plan if you've been paying attention. But Kaiki actually does take the money and decides, yeah, I'll take this money, but I'm not going to stop.
And I love how he's like, he comments on how he's like, he burned the bridge with Guyan, basically, but he feels so relieved about it. It's like, and I love that little moment is like talking about the Guyan as Guyan senpai, and then he's like corrects himself to just Guyan because he's done with that sort of relationship. Yeah. He's not connected to her anymore. Also, watching Kaiki threaten Ononoki to punch her in the face is good stuff.
Yeah. Something else that happens. So Kaiki goes back to visit Nautica, and they do the cat's cradle thing again, and he finds out that she broke the string that he gave him, so she's been using an Ouroboros. And then he's like, she's not just dumb, she's fucking insane. And then when he goes back into town, he gets this sense that someone is following him, but it's never really revealed or solved who is following him. It's just a feeling that he has that someone's been following him. But he kind of he plays it off a little bit. He plays it off, and he's like, maybe he comes up with a couple of examples of what it could be. It could be someone who he had deceived before, trying to follow him around, see what he's doing back in town. It could be one of Guyan's henchmen, quote unquote, trying to track down what he's doing. But he kind of he whisks it away in his mind, and he just doesn't think about it. And then he lies to Nautica's parents over the phone to get them to leave the house. Yeah, again. To get them to leave their house so that he can break in. And he does break in, and he actually opens Nautica's closet. And the very last frame of that episode is him just looking shocked at what he finds in the closet.
By the way, one of my favorite things, he uses his coin to open the locked closet. Perfect.
Yes, he uses money.
His love for money paid off.
So then we get to episode 4. Kaiki goes back to his hotel room, and he gets a letter from someone asking him to, quote, pull out. Who's it from?
Who is now this entire episode is pretty much just one, for the most part, is just, again, a conversation between Kaiki and Itagi, and I love the visuals. I love the visuals of him, after the shower, looking out the window. There's it's very Blade Runner-esque with the the big ass monitor in that one of the building has on it. That's it's just a panning shot of Senjugahara. It looks so good. I love that shot.
Yeah. I do love the cinematography of this conversation.
For sure.
He calls Hitagi and he asks, who do you think could have done this? And Hitagi's like, well, if it was someone who was following him, could be one of the junior high kids that you deceived. And then I also again, another great bit of foreshadowing. It's but if they were following, they just would have hit you from behind.
Probably.
Another great bit of foreshadowing there, Nisio-isan.
And pretty much they talk about mainly about the sort of like who could it be, to sort of speculate who like could have sent it. He's wondering if it's Guy and maybe it's someone else. It's like there's just a lot of questions. Again, she mentions Hanakawa is like, again, who the fuck is this Hanakawa?
Yeah.
Basically, most of this episode is, again, he's just the two of them speculating.
Yeah, it's a lot of them throwing a bunch
yeah.
of conspiracy theories and speculations and all at each other. And again, it's a battle of wits, because I think deep down, Kaiki might know Kaiki might suspect that Hitagi knows who sent that or left that letter for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's basically just a battle of wits between them, trying to figure out who can come up with the most elaborate conspiracy theory about who sent that letter. And then I love that Hitagi's like, well, let me come look at the letter. Maybe I can see whose handwriting it is. Maybe I can determine who it might be. And he's like, no, I threw it away. I ripped it up. I threw it down the toilet. And he's like, why would you do that? But no, so then the next day, we see him on the way to the shrine. He actually stops by and goes and buys sake for Nautico. And he acts, first off, don't give kids sake, boys and girls.
I mean, but technically she's a goddess, so
I even like how Kaiki even points that out. He's like, he directly addresses the audience. Now, before you say anything about me giving alcohol to a minor,
age is just a number, Alex. Am I right? Oh my
god. Anyway, so he goes. They talk. Shit happens. Blah blah blah. And she seems to really enjoy the sake, by the way. So as he's leaving the shrine, he meets Hanakawa. So finally, he gets to find out who the fuck is Hanakawa. Now, this is like the third time I
best outfit Hanakawa. By
yes,
the way.
And the tiger stripes hair. Oh my god, yes. This is the third time that I think I've rewatched this particular story arc, and it's been so long since I'd watched it. From the last time I watched it, that I'd completely forgotten that Hanakawa actually appears in this arc.
Very briefly, but man, every time she appears, I'm like,
again, we get another lie. So we know now that Hanakawa has lied to Hitagi about going overseas. She did fly out, and she has been away, but she's essentially just been on vacation.
I mean, she was looking for Oshino, but she never told Hitagi that she was back for the day, basically, specifically to talk to Kaiki, which... It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. But then they're like, so they leave. And, one thing that she noted, which I totally forgot about that one part, is when she was like, pretty much one of the reasons she left is, aside from looking for Oshino, which we still have no idea where he is basically to sort of like leave Hitagi to act on her own, which sort of pushed her to go to Kaiki and ask for help.
Yeah. It essentially forced her to help herself. Which
sort
is, again, if you will think about it, one of the very first lessons we hear Meme give to Kiyomi. It always leads back to it. It always leads back to it.
And then Kaiki and Hanakawa go to her place where she stays at currently, and sort of like an interesting like conversation that they have, where Kaiki is like, I need to make sure that you actually want Hitagi and Aragi to stay alive, and she's like, yeah, for sure, which I found very interesting. But that's how the episode ends, which leads to episode 5 and their like real conversation. Sort of,
it's also worth pointing out that the anime goes to great lengths to point out that they have exchanged contact information. Just leaving that out there. Yeah, so on episode 5...
I mean, I'd love to exchange contact information with Hanakawa.
Contact information with Hanakawa. What are you talking about? Yeah? I mean, she can't have Koyomi. Might as well have me, right?
Goddamn.
Anyway, so we get to episode 5, and the lead into episode 5 is, I mean, Hanakawa and Kaiki are still having this conversation where Hanakawa pretty much pulls Kaiki up to speed about all the events that have happened in the last few months since he's been away, including the events related to Gaia in an episode where, you remember, was it the beginning of second season?
It was the beginning of second season,
yeah,
which we still don't know why they were there.
Yeah, that's where Hanakawa met Gaia in an episode, and Gaia basically said, "Girl, shut up, sit down, go home."
Now, apparently, a lot of shit went down there in that sort of period of time, but we still don't know what, and it'll be quite a while till we know what happened there,
Yes,
which is
yes, it
an
will.
interesting choice.
Yes, it will. Again, foreshadowing. um, but yeah, one of the things that is discussed here is that Nadeko always struck Hanakawa as being snubbed. And not that Nadeko was snubbed, that she was snubbing people around her, that she had closed herself off to everyone and not being able to be reached by anyone. And that
Which
this
is
was
so
this was
perfect.
yes, which is she describes it as a very conscious effort on her part.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of like that's what I was talking about. This is like her snubbing people around her is like it's so perfect to describe Nadeko's sort of like character in the show. Which,
It is.
I love it.
It is
so precise.
And then the great part here. So Hanakawa asks Kaiki if he knows if Meme has any family.
And then he's like,
specifically
no,
a niece.
Oshino's always been alone all time.
But she specifically asked if Meme has a niece. And if you think back, the first time that we meet Ogi, how is she introduced herself as Meme's niece?
And of course, Kaiki is like, what the fuck are you talking about? He has no family.
He's essentially a loner, kind of like me.
Yeah. I love how he's like, he was born alone to the world, or something like that.
Yeah. Born to be alone. That's the phrase that he uses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that the fact that she mentions that, and Kaiki's like, no, like again, you learn a little bit about Meme, you learn a little bit about Kaiki, the fact that the reason they live these sort of what's the phrase, like wandering lifestyles is because they really don't have anything to go home to.
They don't have a home. That's pretty much.
And I wonder if he means this like literally, or if he means it like that they've basically closed themselves off to their family. Like they actually like have family that's alive, but their family, they have distanced themselves from their family so much so that they don't feel like they have one anymore.
All of the Ghostbusters we don't know that much about when you think about it. It's like we know just
which is why Nisio Izen should write a fucking story about them.
Oh yeah, I'd be down to read that for sure.
Also, she asked about Nautica's closet, and Kaiki very nearly tells her what he found there.
He even said, like, he almost told her, he didn't say anything, and I love how he's like, I almost told her that it's insignificant, but I kept that to myself. I was like, huh, he's fucking with us. I love it. He's fucking with the audience, like, oh, it was insignificant. But it's like, no, it isn't.
So anyway, after this conversation and Hanakawa and Kaiki go their separate ways, Kaiki decides to visit the cram school that Meme himself
used to be.
Yeah, he used to stay in, but sees that it's now in ruins. Of course, that is because of what happened previously. But I love the fact, again, more foreshadowing. He mentions, pretty much speaking directly to the audience, that he meets a girl named Roka, and and he claims that that's going to help him once he actually meets Convery after this case is done.
This is the third time I'm watching this arc, and I forgot he mentioned that. It's so offhand. It's so like such a small comment. I'm like, whoa, hold on. He didn't mention that name, because that name will play a part in a later arc. It's wow. I totally forgot about that.
I love the scene where he's like relating this to the audience. Like, I mean, it's basically just establishing shots or just panning shots of the ruined cram school, where he says, I happened to come across an acquaintance, a girl named Numachi Roka. First of all, implying, in fact, he pretty much outright states that he knows this person from dealings that they have had previously. And then it kind of cuts to him back in his hotel room, like reading over his notes, and he looks directly into the quote-unquote camera, directly at the audience, and he says, that was information that may come in handy someday. For instance, in the future, when I become acquainted with Kavura Sugura. Or Sudaga.
So good. So good.
I just love the way that when he's saying it, he's looking directly at the audience.
He's fucking with us. He's fucking with us, and I love it. Also, again, we see the ruins of the cram school, which we know is in ruins, but we still don't know why.
I mean, kind of know. It's been mentioned
like
before.
We know that ruins. So like we know something happened. I mean, we saw that we saw that back in Hanekawa's arc in second season. So the tiger was there, but it was like something else happened there. It's like I wonder what.
So anyway, after this, we have a time skip. It is now February 1st, so all of January has gone by, and Kaiki places a call to Italki, tells her that today is the day he's going to finish the job, and he's so confident that he's going to succeed. He tells her, "Celebrate with your boyfriend. I think the phrase he uses is "Go make out with Koyomi."
A lot. He used that phrase so many times.
There's a in this conversation, there's something that's really interesting too. So he point blank asks her, like, "Why do you love Koyomi?" And Hitagi answers him after a sort of a pause. He says, "It's because he's Koyomi. I can only fall in love with him." And like at face value, you think, well, that just seems like the author being self-aggrandizing and being like, it's because of the plot, clearly. But it's like, no, it's because of the way he is, like his personality and the kind of man that he is. That's why I fell in love with him.
Also, like, Kaiki sort of comments on that later on in the last episode. It's like this dumbass already is doing the work with loving Araragi or something like the one he's referring to Hitagi, which is great. I love that.
Yeah. So she also tells Kaiki that she's very thankful that he saved her and Koyomi, but that she's still going to hold the grudge against him till the day he dies.
Harsh.
But again, very much like Hitagi.
And then we meet Ononoki again. Peace.
Yay. Peace.
And I love that conversation where Ononoki is literally just like, it's like the previous scene is Araragi questioning someone, and now it's Ononoki questioning him. And it's like, so why are you doing this? And it's like, is it like the kindness of your heart, or is there something like changed within you? This is like so unlike you to just leave this, because she comments on he pretty much like he probably made some money off this case, but not that a whole lot considering how much effort he puts into it.
Yeah, not as much as he could have made by doing other things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I love the fact that in this conversation we get a somewhat deep exploration of Kaiki as a person, because we find out that he was actually the one that crushed the cult that destroyed Hitagi's family, right? And like he worked behind the scenes, unbeknownst to all of them, that he was the one who like tore apart the cult more or less from the inside.
And sort of the divorce, like
after we find out that after this happened, Hitagi's mother went to another cult and got herself involved in it, and then Kaiki realized, wait a minute, this isn't a problem with the cult, this is a problem with her mother. Her mother's just an idiot who keeps getting herself wrapped up in this. I gotta separate Hitagi from her mother. So he gives a shit. He truly gives a shit for no other reason than the fact that he cares.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a sort of question, like, does he care? Does he not? And it's sort of like, he's sort of resigned to the idea. It's like, it is what I do, sort of, It's like when he set his mind to do something, it's like he does it. It's sort of, which is kind of similar to Araragi to some extent.
Yeah. It's almost like he's putting up a mask of this person who doesn't give a shit when deep down he kind of does. It's almost like he's a fake. Yeah, then I like that Ononoki tells him, well, Gaian says you're going to fail like you always do.
And then there's like one shot of his face, and it looks like, he sort of looks, I don't know if it's determined or angry, or maybe even a mixture of both. And it's like, my man. Bitch.
And then we see him go to the shrine, and he puts his plan that he mentioned back a couple episodes ago to Hitagi. He puts that plan in motion. He tells him, hey, this Hitagi and Koyomi, they died in in a car accident, and then the episode pretty much ends with her saying, "Oh, so you're trying to lie to me too." And that's
Pretty
like
much. She's
the
like,
old
"Oh,
shit
you're also a
moment.
liar."
The old shit moment. Like,
I love that moment because she's so she's so frightening in that moment. This is like the first time, because until now, Kaiki sees her as an airhead, as a dumbass, but this is the first time when it's like, oh shit, I fucked up. She's scary.
yeah. But yeah,
And
then
now to the final episode.
The big confrontation. So, so Kaiki is confronting Nautica. We find out that, or she realizes that he's been lying to him the whole time, and she just engulfs the entire shrine area with snakes and ties him down essentially, so he can't move. And Nautica's like telling him like this is. She's just being who she is. There's nothing that she can do about it. Like this is how she has to respond, because this is who she is.
Yeah, there's no line. There's no denying who she is. That's like she's like sort of claiming that like her being this like obsessed and sadistic and violent is just her being herself, and there's nothing more to it.
And she also like reveals to Kaiki that it was Ogi's fault. Again, dropping that name, Ogi.
And it goes back to that theme of like a victim. Is a victim truly a victim that we saw in her arc, where she's like she has embraced in her mind this sort of like position of this isn't my fault. Like I'm just a victim to all of these things that have been happening, and it's like, and so she sort of like lets herself off the hook for being a victim.
Yeah, and it's almost like a I always kind of imagine this as like Nisio Isin kind of calling out the whole victim mentality thing. Like at what point are you truly not at fault for the things that happen in your life? Because some people have crazy shit happen to them of no fault of their own. But then some people have bad things happen to them over and over and over again. And then, like, at what point is it really not anyone else's fault but yours for still getting into this situation?
Yeah.
But again, we get that name drop of Ogi, and it calls back to Ogi earlier in the season, telling her, "Hey, there's this thing at Koyomi's house in his drawer. You should go get it. It's the talisman that turned her into a god." And then it puts all the pieces together. Ogi is the one who is foiling Gaian's plans.
And yeah, it's like, and it's sort of like, and Kaiki is sort of commenting on that, but obviously it's still like, what the fuck is even going on?
Yeah. But we as an audience realize that, oh, it's Ogi who is derailing all of these carefully laid plans that Gaian has. Because Gaian's original plan was to put Shinobu in charge of the shrine. Enshrine Shinobu as like the god of the shrine of that town, so that she would be able to bring a sense of balance to it. But Nautica got to it first. And the only reason that Nautica got to it first was because Ogi told her exactly where it was. And that by consuming it, more or less, it would make her happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and fast forward to this, it's like,
and now she's angry.
And then we have one of the best meltdowns I've ever seen in any show when Kaiki brings up, well, what about this manga I saw in your closet? And she loses her shit.
Yep.
I love it. Everything stops and she's like, what? Why do you know? Why do you know?
You peeked. I also like how Kaiki very obviously read the entire thing, because he's sitting there giving her pointers on how to make it better.
Oh, I love it. It's like, oh, the art style is great. It's a bit cheeky, a bit cheesy, but it's still good. It's very earnest. I love that.
I think with a couple of rewrites, it could be, really, really good. It could sell really, really well. You just got to make it more appealing to a general audience.
And I love how he ties that to a conversation he has with her in the previous episode, where throughout the arc, she asks him, "What is your wish? What is this one thing you wish for?" And then near the end of the arc, he's like, "Do you know why I don't like talk about my wishes? Because like the moment I talk about it, they probably won't come true." And she's like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, just like how your wish that Koyomi and Hitagi are gonna die is not gonna come true if you keep talking about it." And
Yeah.
then he brings her back to the point of no one knew that her dream was to become a mangaka, to write and draw manga. And
Yeah.
yet she sort of like left that dream aside to be infatuated with this like fake wish sort of like killing like her like dream boyfriend and his lover or whatever.
Yeah,
and I love how
the
he
fact
does
that
that
she
back.
allowed herself to become so obsessed with not Koyomi, her idea of what Koyomi is, because she idolizes him so much that she doesn't see him for who he is. She sees the idea of Koyomi in her head.
And she's so obsessed with it to the point where she literally like was infused with a god, thinking she could accomplish that. But in her state right now, she can't even accomplish her true dream of actually writing manga.
Yeah, I just again, this is relating all of it back to something Meme said in the very first episode, where Kaiki literally says point blank to her, "That's why you're the only person who can take care of you.
Yeah.
You cannot help others until you help yourself." God, I love
So
how
fucking
everything
good.
relates back to this.
This arc specifically, I love how much character work it does for not only Kaiki but also Hitagi and also Nadeko. It's just it's so fucking good, dude.
It is.
It's great.
It is. But yeah, throughout the course of this conversation, Nadeko has this realization that the dream actually did mean something to her, and like you gotta open yourself up to let other people in, because then
she
like,
can't give up on that dream.
Yeah, because obviously there's something behind it, right? Like there's talent. Like Kaiki points out that there's obvious talent behind here. It's just if you opened yourself up to it, it might go somewhere. It's not something that you have to keep hidden from everyone. You don't have to keep your true self or the things that you want hidden from everyone.
And he's very much like sort of like very in a very angry manner. It's like, why the fuck is Koyomi like occupying so much of your like headspace? It's like your top priorities. Why is he
living rent free inside your own head?
Yeah,
constantly?
pretty much. It's like, and again, he's like, there is a dumbass who's actually doing that work for you of loving him. Let her do this shit. Why are you like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah. I also like
that.
that's sort of an underhanded, or not even underhanded. It's like a sneak diss and
jab at
Koyomi
yeah.
and Hitagi. It's
very
like,
much.
God, this bitch is dating this asshole. Why do you want him? Let her do the hard work.
And he sort of manages to calm her down, and sort of like she realizes that it's like, okay, yeah, like I do have this dream that I want to fulfill, and then he does it. He actually manages to do the thing and knock her out.
Yeah, and something, one of the things that he does to say this is that he says that he claims that eventually, it may not be now, it may not be a month from now, it may not even be a year from now. Eventually, her parents, at the very least, are going to open that closet and see what's in there, unless you go back home and resume your previous life and maybe grow as a person
and maybe actually fulfill that dream
and
yourself, and
perhaps fulfill that dream.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Kaiki, like you say, calms her down to the point where he's able to get close to her, and he knocks her out with what he calls
that slug or whatever.
It's essentially a fake slug apparition. Again, going back with the fakes. And just as he finishes up doing this, Araragi shows up.
And then one of the best things ever. So first off, this motherfucker is like, oh yeah, Gain sent me to sort of de-escalate this entire situation. So like,
yeah,
I'm taking this talisman.
lie.
lie. I mean, he saved Itagi's ass in that moment. And then I love Aragi's first instinct is like, what the fuck have you done to Nadeko? She needs help. I need to help her. And then Kaiki is like, after he removes the talisman for her and she goes back to normal, he's like, listen, don't go near her again. You're only like, the best thing you can do for her is just leave her alone and get out of her life. And I love how that goes against every instinct of Araragi, but it's so true. He only harms her by being close to her.
Yeah, but even Araragi realizes that like he's right. I don't want him to be right, but I know he's right.
It's that dynamic specifically, how like the result of sort of the end point of that relationship presumably, like between Araki and Nadeko is so perfect. I love how they sort of ended that relationship.
I also like, so when Kaiki actually removes the talisman from Nautica and she goes back to being her regular self, essentially loses her god status, he gives it back to Araragi and he says, I forget exactly what he says and I'm paraphrasing here, but he gives it to Araragi and says, you can do with it what you want, and Araragi says, I don't even want to use this.
Yeah.
So it's like Araragi thinks that there doesn't need to be a god here to look over this town. I'm here.
Also he's sort of like thinking about how much shit happened because of this stupid talisman.
Yeah.
Which apparently Gaian gave him.
Yeah, Gaian was the one that gave it to him. And it's caused all this trouble. And it's like, at this point, he's like, nah, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
And then Kaiki does the only thing he can and just leaves town. And
just leaves
with
town.
a job well done.
On the way out, though, he makes a call to Hitagi. Again, telling her, hey, it's done. It's done. I accomplished it. I'm leaving now.
The deed is done.
The deed is done. I'm on my way out. Just wanted to tell you. All right. And then I love the fact that he says, next time you should really sign your letters. It was Hitagi that sent him the letter at the hotel room.
And then he hangs up on her like that.
And then he hangs up. Not only hangs up, removes the battery from his cell phone and destroys the SIM card inside of it.
What a legend.
What an absolute, so that she can never contact him ever again. I love that. I absolutely love that. But yeah, when Kaiki said, like, Hitagi knew that if she sent him that letter, it would push him even harder to accomplish his goal. And the same with Gaian.
Just like Araragi.
Gaian's sending Ononoki to deliver that message and the money, knew that it would push him even harder to do a better job. And they were both right.
Yeah. And again, it's interesting that the similarity, like, just like Araragi, they always comment on, if you tell him to do something, he'll do otherwise. And it's kind of the same with Kaiki in this case. It's very interesting.
I like how, as he's walking out of town, of course, you see him kind of walking through the snow and out of town. He's by himself, and he's ruminating on some of the stuff that's happened. I like how he also, again, directly addresses the audience and says, I think I've cleared all that up enough for you. Or maybe I've made it opaque. Who knows? Again, leaving it up to the audience to determine just how unreliable of a narrator he is. Just what was the lie and what was the truth. And then he's going
because
over
of course it's Nishio.
Well, he's going over and over again in his head, like, yeah, that's solved, that's solved, that's solved. And then all of a sudden he thinks to himself, wait a minute, who's Ogi? Thwack on the back of his head.
And of course, because it's Nishio, of course you have Yuni's little zinger at the end. And Kaiki is killed at the end of the arc.
We're certainly led to believe that. So yeah, a junior high kid comes out and hits, I assume it's supposed to be a bat, hits him on the back of the head with a bat, and he falls down into the snow. You see the blood kind of pouring out of the head wound.
And he shouts, Ogi told me you were here.
Yeah, Ogi told him that Kaiki would be here and he would have his revenge, more or less. And that's when Kaiki realized, oh yeah, I forgot about Ogi. I should have looked into that. And then I love how, as the arc itself comes to an end, Kaiki is wondering internally, I wonder if in hell money talks. And then he laughs because he remembers he actually has some pocket change on him. And that's like the last we see of him. The kid attacks him one more time and he falls unconscious. And yeah, we're led to believe that
Kaiki is dead. Yeah.
Is dead. And that's the end of Kaiki.
That's the end of Koi Monogatari. That's how this motherfucker ends it.
Yeah. God, it's so good.
What a good arc, dude. What a fantastic arc. It's easily one of the best, if not the best arcs. It's so...
I think it
has everything.
In Monogatari, I think it's unquestionably the best written arc. I think it's one of the best written story arcs in anime, period.
Definitely. I love how... So back in Nisei, like, I loved Kaiki from the beginning, from the start. I love every second of him on screen. But then to actually give him an entire arc that you are inside his headspace, it's so brilliant, and it's so well done. It's so well done to like just in experiencing his inner thoughts and monologues.
It's funny to me that, you know, as sparingly as some of them are used, every time that any of the Ghostbuster characters are on screen, they steal the scene. Every single time.
Sure.
And it perplexes me as to why Nisio Isin has never actually decided to write a story specifically around these characters. I think myself and many other Monogatari fans would be very pleased to see like a story that takes place while these characters are in college and seeing like their origins more or less.
Also, in an unrelated note, shout out to the soundtrack for Koi Monogatari, because goddamn, so they took the ominous theme from Nisei and just built an entire soundtrack around that shit, and it's
pretty much
awesome.
Yeah. There's very few.
So good.
There's very few tracks in this that are actually reused from other parts of Monogatari. But one thing they did do is they took that theme that he is first introduced with and just built, like you said, an entire OST around
it's
that.
So
theme.
Good. I love the soundtrack for this arc. It's so great.
It is. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to talk about with this. Was there anything bad about this arc? Because I couldn't find anything.
No, this arc is perfect, and I loved every second of it.
It is the closest thing to perfection I have seen in anime, I think.
It's just so good. It has everything that Monogatari does well. Like, the dialogue is incredible, the character interaction are incredible. We didn't even mention it. We mentioned it very briefly, but the background art is so good. Like, the interior designs, and like there's so many shots that I'm like, oh, this looks great. I love it.
I think it's worth
so
mentioning. Like, this was Shaft on their absolute A game. Like, bar none.
Yeah.
This was like everyone working at their peak of their peak.
It's that good. It's incredible. Yeah. Like, this arc is absolute perfection. I loved every second of it.
I think you and I are probably both in agreement. Unquestionably, 10 out of 10.
Oh yeah. I mean, again, I don't know if it's my favorite arc, but it's definitely top 3 easily.
Well, okay. So since this is the end of second season as a whole, and when this originally aired, it was pretty much aired. You know, everything was aired back to back. Right. What do you think of second season as a whole? Not just Hitagi End.
Second season is, like, I talked about this a few times by now, and second season feels like the actual sequel to everything that was in Bakemonogatari, right? Like, I absolutely love how we get to see all of these different characters sort of like dissected again to their core from what we saw in Bake, where you see like whether it's Hanekawa or Nadeko or even Itagi to some extent with this arc specifically. It's I love it. Feels like an actual sequel to Bakemonogatari in the best way possible. Yeah. Personally, this is the third time I'm watching second season. Shinobu Time, really good, but I wish it was an episode shorter. But as a whole, second season is absolutely incredible. Yeah,
I would say if there is one weak spot in second season, it is Shinobu Time, and not because I think the story is bad. It's just because I think it goes on just like you say, one episode.
It's bloated. It's a bit bloated. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that could have been done in 3 episodes, not 4.
But aside from that, second season absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite anime seasons ever. And I think with good reason. It just slaps. It really does. Like, it's everyone on their A game. It's Nisio Isin at his absolute best in terms of writing. Shaft just completely knocked everything out of the park with this. As good as, Bake and Nisei were, it just completely knocked it out of the park.
And Nisei especially was incredible on rewatch. Don't get me wrong.
So, last question before I sign us out here. Who was the real fake that was introduced in Nisei? Because the answer is in second season. Was it Nadeko? Was it Kaiki? Or was it Tsukihi?
All of the above. Honestly.
See, because I've always thought it was a huge bait and switch. When you look back to Nisei after watching this, the real fake was Nadeko.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, heck, remember back in Nisei when literally they referred to Nadeko as, oh, she's the final boss. Yes. Literally, they sort of do that there. It's
again
incredible.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the movies, this is called foreshadowing.
So fucking good. Absolutely incredible shit. Like, this is why Monogatari is so... Dude, we literally spent 3 different recordings for this 126 episode season.
Yeah. We've spent over 4 hours, I think, at this point, talking about the second season. So, yeah.
God damn.
It's great. It's the longest season. It's the longest bit of the Monogatari series that's come out. And, well, at least as of the time of this recording, assuming there's going to be no more... anime. So what's next, Nitai? What do we got next?
Hana Monogatari, here we come.
Hana Monogatari.
Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go. 5 episodes. I wonder if it'll be shorter than this recording. Probably not.
Probably not.
I think once we get through Hana Monogatari, though, that is the end of second season of.
Then we get to final season. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Then we get to final season, so that should be interesting. And of course, we are eventually, like I said, going to go back and do Kizu Monogatari, which is technically part of first season in terms of its story, but aired while final season was going on. So we shall get to that.
There's still a while till we get there. Yeah.
Yeah, Hana Monogatari will be our final foray into second season and then on to final season. So definitely look forward to that. I have thoroughly been enjoying this rewatch so far. I hope you have
It's
too.
so good. I'm having a great time with this show. It's really great to watch something that you always like cherish as something like absolutely incredible that you love, and you like, wow, it's even better than I realized.
Yeah. But yeah,
good shit.
that is second season. Thank you all there for dropping in to listen to us absolutely gush about one of our favorite things ever. Check the description below to find Anime Club After Dark on social media, on Discord, and check out our merch store where we have lots of things that you can purchase. I have some stuff coming up for certain holidays and that are coming up for... We got... Burb has made... nice holiday versions of our logos, which I will be bringing out throughout the rest of this year as merch that you can buy. Yes.
Buy our merch.
Yes, it definitely helps us. Every purchase you make there really does help us out. With that, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, Natai.
Goodbye. Time to cry myself to some karaoke. Yeah, baby.
Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. Oh God, I love you, Kaiki, best girl.